they wouldn't recommend people to become lawyers now.
If a client could get the right answer at a hundredth of the cost, to them, they don't care whether it comes from a human or AI.
Firstly, I know a lot of lawyers who don't even know what ChatGPT is, in fact.
This is the biggest advancement in human history. This is bigger than the internet. This is bigger than the Industrial Revolution.
Which to me is mind-blowing. I've spoken to a lot of law firms over the past year about AI, and most of them don't realise what's actually coming. Some still haven't tried ChatGPT. Others think it's all a hype. But here's the truth. AI isn't a future risk. It's a right now disruption. And yet too many law firms are still asleep at the wheel. In this very frank conversation with Kyle Torrington, the co-founder of Loft Legal, a tech-driven online law firm, and co-founder of AirCounsel, an AI-powered contract drafter for attorneys, we discuss which parts of legal practice are on the brink of being replaced by AI, what the real role of lawyers could look like in just a few years, and how those who act now can future-proof their careers. He shared perspectives on how tech and AI can shape the role of law firms in a way that I've never heard people speak about before.
I didn't intend to come on this podcast and spell doom, but I mean,
No.
I'm just giving my honest opinion.
I don't think it is doom, though. I really don't. It's just a frank, honest conversation that people need to really know about and be aware of. I think the scariest thing is them not being aware of it. And I think a lot of lawyers are burying their heads in the sand, or at least in this conversation, they can take the points and be like, okay, I now know what to do. They can take this information and they can improve and future proof themselves. So I think
Yeah,
it's positive.
yeah, I hope so. I say it with a smile to make it less devious sounding.
Yeah.
We're all doomed.
How did you feel when ChatGPT came about and your brain starts going, oh, how do we use this in the law firm?
I mean, I remember where it came out, and I told my co-founder, I'm like, this is the biggest advancement in human history. This is bigger than the internet. This is bigger than the Industrial Revolution. This is going to be far greater, and it's going to affect everything that we do in law. And I mean, that moment, I mean, I remember clearly where I was at the time, and it was going into December of 2022. I thought, well, we need to get building on this. So although in South Africa at that time, it's a holiday period, that's when we got straight into building during that December period of how we can integrate it into our site, because it was just so revolutionary. It really, really was. Although we've advanced far internally, far beyond just using ChatGPT, obviously, I mean, that was the genesis to everything, really. As with most firms and their AI discoveries, was ChatGPT.
What was your next step then? How did you start to use that in your day-to-day work?
The next steps were, I mean, obviously experimenting with the chat through the ChatGPT interface, what it can do, what its limitations were. At that stage, we were limited with GPT 3.5, which wasn't amazing. One of the first things, the first API, meaning doing the programmatic work on our website without users having to actually leave our website or us go directly to the ChatGPT interface through an API, was our trademark search component, where up until that point, if people wanted to do a trademark search, a free trademark search through us, we would have humans doing the trademark search. We'd have to go into the respective countries' trademark databases, retrieve the trademark search results, do a search ourselves, and provide the client with a manual response. And then we thought, well, this is something that AI can do. So we developed a AI solution where you just simply type in the name that you want to trademark. It would then pull from the country's respective databases. The AI would then look over the results and decide, like a human, is there a conflict? Is there not a conflict? Is it generic? Is it not? Are there other conflicts in terms of laws that could render it not registrable? And then deliver the client with effectively a report, and if it is available, a link to go through with the process and order the trademark registration through our site. So that saved us probably, or our staff, probably about an hour or 2 hours a day of free searches. And then as soon as we realized we could do that, we thought, hold on, this is just the start. And then it just became everything. The amount that we've got going on in the back end is just unbelievable with regard to AI that front end users might not ever see, and which are more efficiency on the back end, for example. I mean, I'd say it's almost a ratio of about 10 to 1 in terms of AI processes on the back end that clients don't see to AI processes on the front end, which clients do happen to see.
Wow, it's just a whole different way of doing things. And honestly, I speak to so many law firm owners who just work in the old traditional ways of
Mm.
working, and still a lot of them use just paper. I just
Mm.
think it's so interesting how you were like, this is changing everything. ChatGPT is revolutionary. Okay, how can we implement it? Whereas so many other law firms were like, well, firstly, I know a lot of lawyers who don't even know what ChatGPT is, in fact, which to me is like mind blowing. And then other ones would have been like scared of it. But I think so many would never have thought to implement it into their day to day work. And I think it's like so forward thinking of you to do that, you know? It's daring actually.
It's weird. I mean, it's strange that you say that. I suppose we've, with our sort of services at Loft, we've lived in a world, we kind of just know our own processes. So for us, it's normal, it's a necessity. So to hear that is quite surprising. I'll be quite honest with you. I think just because we've been so caught up in our own manners and our own processes and just being so AI focused on everything.
Honestly, if you had the conversations with the people I'm having the conversations with, you'd just be like, "What on earth?" It's crazy. How do you see AI and technology being used in law firms in the future? Like, let's say in the next 5 years, do you think it's something that's going
Mm.
to have to be implemented in order to keep up with firms like yours, for example?
I mean, I wouldn't say to keep up with firms like mine, but purely because of client pressure, I believe. Clients, I think, will get to a point where they expect it to both bring down costs, increase efficiency, and ultimately produce a product which is greater than a lawyer on their own or greater than AI on their own. I just think the expectations will become a lot higher to the point where you've got no choice. I just can't see it. It's almost like saying back in the day in sort of, I don't know, 2004 or so, do you expect law firms not to use the internet in any way? I mean, you have to. I mean, or email perhaps. I can't see how it's something that can be ignored for very long. I just cannot see it, to be honest with you. It really will become a necessity, and to our minds at this point already, it's a necessity.
Absolutely, yeah. Is there any part of your work that you feel like you don't want AI to touch, or you wish that it won't get to that point where you need to use AI for a certain area?
There's hope, although not based on logic, that I hope that lawyers will still remain necessary and valid or required for legal services. And for as long as possible, I hope that there'll always be a human in the loop to see the output of AI. It's not a specific part of law, I suppose, that what I'm saying, but I do hope that there will always be that human touch element in legal services because a lot of what we do as lawyers is often hand holding and basically not being a psychologist, but basically being a sort of shoulder to lean on as a human and for comfort as much as we are there to provide the actual legal services. I think it'll be very hard for AI to replace that. But I think from a cold, hard logic perspective, in terms of providing better legal services, I don't see in the long term how humans are on our own going to remain in front of AI or to remain better or cleverer or provide a better output than AI. I don't think it's possible that it's going to go that route. I mean, I do see that AI will quite soon overtake the ability of most professionals across the globe, whether it be law or otherwise. So it wouldn't make logical sense from a client perspective just of humans doing the services where there is no AI sort of touching it.
It's a very interesting point, actually, and it's something that I think about. And I know at the moment, obviously, we're in the, I would say, early stages of AI, and it's obviously going to become more developed, more improved, and over time, so much more cleverer. So I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in the next even 3 years, you know? But I do know that even people are using ChatGPT as like a therapist, asking questions and getting really great answers back. And I'm just thinking, is the same thing going to happen with lawyers? But it is a tricky one. I feel like AI could well replace lawyers in the future.
Yeah, I think also because it's not a service where people genuinely require, such as the arts, a human involved. If a client could get the right answer at a hundredth of the cost, to them they don't care whether it comes from a human or AI. Versus me going to some sort of artist. I mean, I could probably get a great drawing done on Stable Diffusion or Dolly or something like that from AI, but you just want the human involvement there because, I mean, I suppose there's scarcity and all the rest, but you would want humans involved in artistic creations. But like accounting and law, I don't see from a client perspective how that's a necessity, or how they want that, unless there really are genuinely aspects of human consoling that would be required as part of the services. But if you're just simply looking for a contract or a trademark registration or something where there's no real emotion involved, why require a human? It'll just serve to be more expensive and prolong the process.
True. Yeah, I do
I
agree.
don't mean to spell doom. I don't mean to spell doom. I'm just
No, no.
sort of looking at the natural progression. I mean, I read somewhere a few months ago that the capability of leading models is improving. I'm just trying to remember the actual stats on this. I believe it was threefold every 7 months. And I mean, that's scary. I mean, the compounding effect of that over time is just going to be unreal,
Yeah.
in respect to the frontier models. It really will be.
How do you think, in your opinion, that lawyers can, in this sense, future proof themselves? I have some of my own ideas,
Mm,
but I'd love to hear your
yeah.
ideas.
Well, obviously, adopting the technology firstly is a must. It has to be done. I think leveraging off AI technologies that are out there to increase their output, perhaps drop their costs as well to some extent, but augment them to a point where they are provided with, or their output is far better than they would otherwise be able to put out themselves. But with the help of AI, they are able to produce a product which is of a far greater quality. So they just have to, I think, start experimenting with it and start to use the tools. Alternatively, I mean, there's obviously the route of going, well, I'm going to position myself as a lawyer in providing services where the respective law society in my country reserves that work for only humans. So litigation, for example, or something to that effect. That's another way of doing it, where you've got these, for lack of a better word, artificial barriers where AI is just simply not allowed to produce the actual output. They could be involved in the process, but ultimately you have to have a human representing you, for example, during litigation. So that's another strategy to sort of future-proof yourself. But over time, as it becomes more accepted, I don't know if law societies will start to drop those sort of barriers. But then again, there are going to be interest groups from lawyers within the respective countries lobbying to prevent that and protect themselves, which yeah, I just don't know how that's going to play out. But that's another strategy, I would think.
I think another thing is basically what you did, but I feel like you did it because you found it fun, but you kind of focused a lot on coding and this tech side because you found it fun, and also law. And I think if people want to future proof themselves, then they should learn more about AI technology and coding as well.
Yeah, or using, I mean, there's so many what they call vibe coders nowadays where you can develop your own things, gain an interest not necessarily in the nuts and bolts of the code, but in developing your own products because you can. Like if you go into lovable.com, you can tell it to create an app for you and it'll code up. There are some sort of technical challenges, and the technology has got a bit to go to really cater for lawyers or laypersons from a coding perspective. But you can sort of put up an app over the course of a weekend and have it designed based on natural language. But yes, a genuine interest, I think, in AI and where it's going, I think it will place you in a great position to decide how to sort of keep yourself at the forefront of the legal industry and to keep yourself relevant.
Yeah, exactly. I think another point is AI, although it can do marketing, I guess, people look for that human touch in marketing. And I feel like you do need humans in marketing because it needs to be focused at humans and people buy from people. So I feel like marketing is going to be a really big one because there's going to be so many law firms out there who are going to utilize technology, and all of the processes and systems are going to be similar within different law firms. And so it's a case of, okay, who can actually market the best to showcase our features and our
Yeah,
teams and these
yeah.
things. So I think it's perhaps
Mm.
lawyers might take on more of that type of role in future, maybe.
Perhaps. I'm no marketing expert, so I wouldn't delve into trying to impart my expertise in marketing, but it could well be that 90% of most legal tasks are automated, and then the battle from a law firm's perspective becomes over obtaining the work for the last 10%. I suspect might be another component of how it will play out, I think, over time.
That's what I think. But we shall see. We'll listen back to this episode in like 5 years and see if we were right.
Mm. Well, yeah, exactly. So if we're still in business, gosh.
Yeah. And I think there's more pressure than ever just to innovate and make things more
Yeah.
efficient and update processes and these things. And I think
Mm,
firms need to sort out their internal systems as
yeah.
well. I think positions
Mm,
like legal operations are going to be more
yeah.
important than ever because legal operations are the
Mm,
ones that look at, okay, what technology can we use to make these
yeah.
processes better? So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
things are changing a lot.
I mean, it is going to change fundamentally and it will continue to change. And it's just a case of really trying to stay on top of it as we go along.
If you're a legal tech founder still trying to grow your brand, the reality is this: someone with half your expertise is about to outposition you. And when they do, you don't just lose reach, you lose deals, investors, opportunities, and more. I'm opening exclusive free access to a blueprint I've never shared publicly. If you want to become law firm's go-to legal tech solution, you'll need to become the leading authority. I explain exactly how in my blueprint. Go to the description of this episode to get it sent straight to your inbox now. So you started your own development-focused online law firm and you built tools for your internal attorneys like your AI contract drafter, which is now available to other attorneys. Could you tell
Yeah.
me a little bit more about this story?
So, Loft Legal was born in and about 2021 with the goal of providing high quality legal services to small businesses and individuals through effectively an e-commerce interface on a fixed price basis. So you'd be able to go onto the site, go through all our services or request a custom quote, find the service that you need, click on it, purchase the service, and our lawyers would attend to the services on the back end. But with the advent of ChatGPT, we jumped into that all pretty much instantly, where we were able to hook into an API of OpenAI and provide for AI-based legal question and answer services. So that was our first foray into AI-based legal services, or at least a free service offering on our platform, which could help our clients. And apart from all the other AI services that we delve into on the side or on the back end, one service of which I started to mull over in my mind was a contract drafter and the logic as to how we could put together an AI contract drafter. The obvious concerns were hallucinations, templates or outputs which might not be of a lawyer's standard, the obvious output of the current AI models only being able to output, say, 2 pages, and it certainly wouldn't be fitting of an attorney or of a lawyer or of a solicitor to have as a contract, and how to knit all of those together or bring all of those together to possibly develop a coherent version of a full legal contract up to the standards of a lawyer and output it in a manner that fits their workflow. Because in addition to what I've just spoken about, AI models obviously only produce text on a page. And if you copied and pasted that, even if it were good enough, you wouldn't have automated numbering, you wouldn't have hyperlinking if you place it in a Word document. It would just be a text file on a Word document, which wouldn't be too helpful to lawyers. And it would probably make the ultimate output of a contract in many respects more lengthy in terms of time than it would just following your normal processes. So, having thought about this process for probably about 6 months in my head, jotting it down, because incidentally, I'm an attorney by training, but over the last 14, 15 years, I've always written my own code, developed my own legal related apps and platforms. I sit in a unique position where I might not be the greatest attorney in the world, I might not be the greatest coder in the world, but I regard myself as probably being the best attorney coder in the world. If that's even a position.
Yeah.
So having thought this through for probably about sort of 4, 5, 6 months, at that point, models weren't good enough as yet to draft coherent contracts, or at least parts of them. I still got to building the nuts and bolts of eventually what would become our AI contract drafter. It was a cool sort of project on the side because primarily our main day-to-day business is serving, as I mentioned, utilizing our legal practitioners, serving clients throughout the US, Canada, Singapore, Australia, etc., where we have our legal teams. We started using it internally across our various different jurisdictions that we provide services to, where people, for example, would check out on our website. We would send them an automatically compiled AI questionnaire based on a short description that they've left. From there, from the answers that they've provided, we would place that into our automated contract drafter, who would then set about drafting the contracts. And the contracts, although they are fully automated from start to finish, typically take sort of half an hour to 45 minutes. We started to learn of the processes of the outputs that were provided to our lawyers of what needed to be cleaned up, what needed to be changed to reinforce the models and to assist in our processes and making the AI contract drafter much better. And then we got to a point probably about a month or so ago, maybe a little bit longer, where we thought, this is good enough to perhaps look at start offering to other attorneys, as we found tremendous benefit. We find a saving on our drafting of about 98%, which means that to the client, there's reduced cost. To ourselves, there's greater profit margins, actually, even though the ultimate cost saving to the client is bigger. And the return on investment, is probably 4 or 5x what it would normally be in standard drafting, we found. It is a case, that's essentially the evolution of where we've come from Loft to launching this automated contract drafter, which is our contract drafter's name's Titan under the AirCounsel banner. This is the first of the products under our AirCounsel brand. And yeah, and it's a product we use every single day. We tweak it and change it every single day. As I've spoken to you about, in addition to it being able to draft off your precedents with your tone and style, we also, and we have been experimenting with it internally over the course of the last month, where it will still draft in your own tone and style, even without a precedent, which I think is very exciting.
Wow. No, that's amazing. And I think what's really interesting is that your team is already using this, and this is something that's
Yeah.
already being implemented daily. I think this mindset that you talk about, you decided to, I guess, systemize and make everything so much more efficient by using AI and technology from the offset. But not all law firms or legal companies think like this. They don't have this mindset. Where did it come from for you?
The mindset, I think, was born, I would say, back in my first year of doing articles as a lawyer. I realized I had an entrepreneurial streak and I just wanted to build things. That eventually led into being or growing into a mindset which likes to implement AI. Back then, it was a case of, well, what can I build? What can I learn how to do internally using software that I can launch for my company that I was at? So at that stage, it was a case of, I built an online trademarking site where you could go onto the website, effectively provide us your details, and we would provide online trademarking for you and trademark your product or your brand for you. And that was my first sort of foray into this mindset of going, oh, great, I can build something that enhances efficiency using technology and can make a little bit of money in the process, which is really cool. And that mindset just grew and grew and grew to a point where it really is why it's just a mindset that I've got. I have to be building almost on a daily basis because it excites me. I just love it.
Yeah. So I guess for you, it was just like the natural next step. Like, let's make this firm
Yeah,
more efficient. Let's make our work
yeah,
so much more systemized and the process is more efficient.
yes,
So the only
yeah,
way to do that is by implementing technology. I love what you said
yeah.
about ChatGPT coming in and you looking at ChatGPT and being like, okay, how can we utilize that? I want to know more about your culture within your law firm with the idea of this technology because so I've worked in traditional law firms where
Mm,
we collaborate, we speak, we didn't really use that much technology. It was more like human to
mm,
human collaborations and things, and that culture
mm.
was built based on that. How is the culture
Yeah.
in your firm?
Yeah, so the culture is number one, we're a development focused firm. We are a software development company that simply has a focus on law. And we happen to have legal experts which inform our legal products, our software products more so than most firms out there. So our culture is different in that we structure ourselves and regard ourselves as more so of a software technology company that just happens to provide great legal services. Our lawyers are obviously different in that they, although they are presented and have access to all our AI tools, they still obviously do a lot of hand holding with the client and ultimately provide a legal product that clients are kind of familiar with, the end product, but at of what we think a far greater standard at a lower cost point than most traditional law firms out there. So yeah, that's sort of how our culture differs. Anything that can be automated will be automated. I mean, from although, ironically enough, from a hand-holding perspective, we don't yet and have found, or we tried to for a bit, to automate customer service, but we found that people get so frustrated coming onto our website and chatting to bots that a human touch point at that point is absolutely necessary, which is quite different. I think a lot of people are taking a different approach to customer service and chatbots there. But yeah, everything on the back end, whether it be from internal ticketing systems to respond to emails, to being able to quickly pull from our databases as to what services are owing, what services need to go out, when they're due, what they comprise of. That's all queryable from internal AI chatbots. So we built that out. And I suppose another aspect in which our firm or our company differs is that apart from one or two aspects, we just develop all our software internally. We find that even if it's sort of maybe more traditional sort of CRM systems like a Trello or something, let's just develop that internally. Let's just run it to exactly our specs, have it lean. We've got the ability to do it. And that's how I suppose we also differ to most general companies out there. It's just a case of let's just build all our own software, make it very, very purpose-built to us.
That's fascinating, because I was actually speaking to someone on the podcast who was talking about how firms are utilizing, these tech softwares like, for example, Trello or something like this, and they're not actually thinking about whether it is compliant with the regulations of their jurisdiction. The legal profession is a highly regulated profession, and so if you're using software like, for example, a transcriber or something like this, it may not be compliant with your law, and law firms can't afford to risk that type of thing. So I think it's super interesting that you're like, okay, let's take something that's really useful and efficient and great for us, and let's just create it.
Yeah, that's it. So, like for example, Trello is a good example. We started out in the pre AI era of using Trello, at least initially. Then we thought, well, listen, of Trello's features, we probably use 5% of them. Let's just build the 5% ourselves. And then it's purpose built to us. It's super fast. It's lean. It works for us. It's hosted in a compliant fashion where we need to host it in the UK, where our company is, obviously controlled by the GDPR and whatnot. And we save on our monthly subscriptions at the end of the day that we were paying to Trello. You know, uh, obviously the cost of building it out in terms of manpower was far greater than our monthly subscriptions, and it will only pay off in about 200 years. But fun project.
Right. Yeah, fun project. And also, it comes down to this thing of we make it compliant for us, we make it work for us. What's worse, you are paying all that manpower to create it, or a massive fine from the ICO.
Yeah. Well, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Is
The
there
way
any
up.
part of your firm's culture that you would like to automate if you could?
As much as possible, I love my morning development meetings with my development team. The cool ideas and the tools we discuss and the approaches that might not even relate to law, but have an indirect impact from collaborative morning meetings where there's just energy and creativity flowing and people bringing ideas to the table from completely unrelated industries, and we can query about how to implement those, or how the legal industry would benefit from them. That's something I wouldn't want to replace. But what parts of the culture I would want to replace by law? Every single thing that can be automated and that humans don't want to deal with, or even if humans deal with it, they're better spent elsewhere. That's sort of the rule of thumb that we operate on, to be honest with you.
I think it's a great mindset to have.
I think it will become the norm. I think across all industries is that people will start having to think about this. I mean, with the pace of technology growth, I believe it will become part and parcel of most businessmen and most lawyers' sort of standard arsenal of tools that they'll have to bring on board in building a company. One cool tool that we started to use in the background is and we got the idea from, I heard it is in one of our morning developer discussions where the cool creativity flows between us. And my developers came up with a story, well, a news story that happened probably about 3 or so months ago, where it was something like there was a particular app that was brought out where developers are able to start cheating development interviews because they had certain software which during interviews was bringing up like flashcards for the interviewee on their sort of Google Meet or something like that. If I remember correctly, I might be wrong in terms of the facts. And they were able to cheat these development tests or development interviews by virtue of these sort of flashcards that were coming up. And we thought, well, that's perfect, not from a cheating perspective, but with our lawyers internally, we do a lot of contract reviews and we do a lot of Google Meet follow-up consultations. So if we can, for example, going into the consultation, you upload your contract that you reviewed as well as your review, so it's got context of that. The AI then listens into the meeting, obviously with the consent of the client, and flashcards are then brought up, answering the client's questions just for the lawyer to be able to take cognizance of the flashcards, the information relative to that is pulling up relative to the contract. So you don't need to go into the contract, go into all the terms and answer based on that, and it'll provide you with answers that it draws based on the respective laws in your jurisdiction. So it's an AI augmented online consultation app, effectively, which we're going to be looking to probably also disseminate in the future to other law firms, which I think it'd be very, very cool. And
Yes.
it's quite a lot of fun to run internally, in and amongst a whole bunch of other tools that we're building internally, which are just, to be quite frank, a lot of fun to build.
Wow, that sounds so cool. That would be so, so helpful. Like if I think back to the days, when I was a lawyer, that would have been so helpful. I love what you're doing. I feel like you guys are just like one big like science lab just testing different things.
That's it.
I spoke to a random partner that I bumped into, and they told me that they thought that their law firm would be extinct in the next 20 years. And I was
Mm,
like, whoa, that's a really interesting thought. And I
mm,
think basically they said they wouldn't recommend people to become lawyers now because how much the industry is
mm.
changing. But I feel like if you applied that to all industries, the same is relevant for all industries because AI is
Yeah,
transforming every single industry. So I think that's
100%.
crazy to think that. But what are your thoughts on that?
I tend to agree, although my horizon would be shorter than 20 years. I don't know how it will play out. Will it always be law firms being augmented with AI? I can only see it being that for a period of time, whilst provided we're protected but not based on logic, that's the only way we could remain AI human augmented. With how clever the systems are getting, it is, as I mentioned, it is going to overtake humans very quickly. So logic dictates that we will not be relevant in our profession, I don't think, apart from handholding, but that is the only reason we'd be kept in the professions is because of possibly that handholding aspect, which does not depend on the intellectual ability that our respective industries or the expertise in our industries or the people in the respective industries have got or had up until this point.
I think a few points there is that, but surely we need lawyers to be able to make sure that everything is completely accurate within these AI systems. I know most of it is accurate, but it's like surely people are going to want lawyers
Mm-hmm.
to be checking the AI to make sure that
Yeah.
it is accurate.
Yeah, I think for a time, I mean, we've also implemented AI eval systems where I feel that in a lot of respects they're more accurate than humans. I mean, if you are able to have, let's say, a particular output done by AI, to have it, let's say, determine whether or not there is an hallucination or something's wrong, have 40 other AI processes query and run the same eval operation over that output, the likelihood of an orchestra in the majority being more correct, even if they are AI, than a human, I think is fairly high and will only grow over time. So I think the checking over time will even be taken up by AI models. And also to the point where I think some of the frontier models will have these built-in AI eval processes. And I mean, I think was the CTO of OpenAI, came out about 2 weeks ago saying the importance of AI eval companies and the growing industry of AI eval companies that are able to provide systems and processes which check the outputs of AI that feed back into the AI system to improve them are going to become massive in the future. And with the reinforcement learning techniques and having that in the loop, it will compound the growth even more so of these AI models and prevent them from hallucinations. And I think also what dramatically reduces, and in terms of checking work, grounding the AI in its output, in that it makes AI API calls to different legal databases, for example, where it has up-to-date knowledge. The reduction in hallucinations is really material. So yes, I think for the foreseeable future, we will be there checking over things, but I just can't imagine how that will be the case in perpetuity. Spelling doom on this.
I'd like to dive into your contract drafter a little bit more, because I know there's going to be a lot of people listening to this episode who are going to be quite intrigued about this, because I know that in the past, I've spent so much time looking at drafting contracts for my own services. And even when I worked within a legal company, I had to use quite clunky templates to draft contracts. And, I've even looked at ChatGPT and other ways of drafting contracts, and there's just no tool that kind of hits the nail on the head, if you know what I mean. And I think it was a few months back now, you sent me a link to AirCounsel, and I tried it for myself, and I was like, wow, this is so good. It's so much better than other tools that I've used myself. And I think one of the coolest parts for me is the fact that you can adapt it to different jurisdictions. It's not just a contract for the UK, for UK law, for example. You can literally choose your jurisdiction and it will pick up on different nuances, like you've said. So tell me a bit more about the process.
So the current process is you go onto the site, you specify in general what sort of a contract you as a lawyer are looking to draft on behalf of your client. So you might say it's a services agreement, these are the parties, these are the payment terms. From there, you click on a button which says something like refine with AI questions. Our AI will then look at your instructions. If you've uploaded a precedent, we'll also look at your precedent. It will then determine what gaps there are in the instructions that you provided that it thinks it needs in order to properly draft a compliant contract for you. It asks those questions to you. It could be sort of up to 20, 25 questions. And then you've got the option of either answering them by typing out answers. Alternatively, you can use our AI system to try answer them to the best of its ability. It won't make up facts. For example, if in your original instructions you didn't provide a registration number for a company, it won't just make up a registration number. It goes into deep research mode and researches all the different laws in your jurisdiction, any changes in laws, any drafting quirks that there might be, and it takes that all on board and remembers that for the remainder of the process. From there, it looks to design a framework and also does deep research on the framework. The framework is essentially the headings of the agreement coupled with conceptually what should be under each clause. And after designing the framework, it then goes into a critiquing or an eval agent. An eval agent is effectively an evaluation AI agent to look at the framework, which decides, great, I like this, I don't like this, take this part out, retain this part, and then it produces a refined framework. And then from there, it goes to our various drafting agents. It effectively starts the drafting process where each drafting agent is responsible for a component of the contract and drafts, for example, in a manner, drafts clauses in a parallel fashion. So it drafts multiple versions in parallel of the same clause. And then it goes at each step of the way through another critiquing or eval agent to look at, has it catered for the relevant content correctly based on the instructions? Has it followed a precedent correctly to the extent that there's a precedent? Has it looked at local laws correctly? Has it unnecessarily repeated itself relative to previous clauses, which incidentally was a very hard problem to solve, is the repetitions with AI. And then from this critiquing or eval agent, it will output or it'll either take the best version of the parallel clauses or output an amalgamated version of the parallel generated clauses. And then we'll continue in this fashion all the way through to the end. And then it is put through one final evaluation / critiquing agent to make the necessary changes that it thinks might need to be made to the contract. Contract is delivered to you in Word document format, which is properly hyperlinked. But what we're getting to and what we've been testing internally is more control over the framework. So currently it just sets off and drafts and decides on the framework itself. But in the process that we've tested internally and what we're looking to, or what we will be making live in probably the next 2 weeks or so, is it generates a framework in the site itself, of which you can go view the framework, move around the framework, delete different clauses if you don't want them, or different clause headings, delete the conceptually what you would like under each clause, just a summary of it, and change headings if you would like. And then you click draft, and then it goes about its drafting process.
Thank you for listening to this episode of More Than a Law. Go to the description of this episode to find out more about Kyle's AI contract drafter.